All right, so we made auctions their own video set because they are so dynamic and so unique. Let's begin the discussion of an auction from the standpoint of a seller. Why would you want to sell your property at auction when, if you market it through the MLS, you can pick a price, put it on the market, people can negotiate with you, it can sit there and come down in price, but ultimately people can negotiate with you and then you can buy the property. If you think about it in one hand, you don't have any sense of urgency. Agents are going to send you deals, and I personally love to purchase properties when there's no one else negotiating. I have pulled out of several transactions, or at least waited in the wings of transactions, when I find out that a colleague at my local RIA, for example, is actively negotiating for a property. If you interact with that selling agent and let them know you are also interested, it will encourage them to stonewall the negotiation, and you won't get the dynamic price reductions that you want. You really do want the seller to feel that you're the only deal in town and that they need to accept your offer. Auctions take that in a very different direction. What the auction is doing is it's getting everybody into the room, the price goes up, and then you begin an energetic, exciting back and forth. In fact, the rhythm of the auctioneer is there, that he does not stop speaking. He doesn't stop making sound at you while he's engaging with the various buyers in the room and trying to get each one of you to commit. We begin at the top. You're going to have your property disclosures and your lead-based paint disclosure already established. The day of the walk, the day of the auction, all the documents are there prepared, ready for you to see ahead of time. The inspection of the property is going to be typically the 1 hour window before the auction begins. And that is the time to bring your property inspector, and in reality, because most of us don't necessarily buy at each auction, you are going to be relying on your agent, us, to tell you what we see. And thus, you really have to know who your agent is if you're going to buy property at auction. If you win, you need to put down $5,000. I think $5,000 is the number. I've seen 10 a couple times. But you have to put down earnest money that day. We have owners just register online, and then your credit card's already on file before the auction even begins. Ultimately, after you make your EMD payment, you have 30 days to close. Now, if you have a mortgage that you're involving and the mortgage needs to delay the closing, keep in mind that will be a conversation and a relationship. We have good relationships with the mortgage companies locally. Some of them are more strict than others. And so, if they follow the letter of the contract, and it states that you will be closed in 30 days, and if you don't close in 30 days, maybe they give you an extension, but after that, you'd better close. Don't expect to be able to push this out 60 and 90 days. That definitely won't happen. This is a game which is much wiser for those of us with line of credit, with those of us who have simple access to capital. Cash, of course, is king. Lastly, the buyer is going to pay the seller's commission. Like, super exciting. So you want to plan on you're going to pay for marketing the property, the marketing fees. That way, if your property never sells, the auction company isn't out anything. But ultimately, at the purchase, at the gavel slam, you have a 10% buyer's premium. And so that is the commission is being paid for by the buyer, and that's super simple. Let's move into why buy at auction, kind of flip the script here. When you are at the auction, it is super fast, it is super energetic. The ultimate reality on your auctions is no one knows what the auction looks like. I'm going to give it two flavors. You don't know whether you were supposed to go to the auction until you open up the morning papers. Back in the day, we had those things. And you would see that auction sold 60 cents on the dollar, and OMG, I wish I'd been there. That's where none of us want to be when we're dealing with auctions, and that's what all of us are hoping when we walk into the auctions. You are going to the price. You're going to find the price is dependent with the people that are in the room attending the auction. I always say, if you have, husband, wife, 2 kids, and a realtor in tow, and they're looking at an auction, especially if you get 2 of those, I tell my agents, like, look, tell our owners they're probably not going to get a deal today. We have 2 homeowners in the mix. The 2 homeowners are going to go back and forth, and they frankly don't care whether they're 1% rule, 10% over the 1% rule, like whatever, it's not a factor for them. This is their home. They're willing to pay a premium as a result. So it all depends on who is in the room when we begin the auction itself. How to succeed with auctions. At LaPlante Real Estate, we attend the auction, and the owners, the investors who are interested in these properties, have to be available that hour before the auction. What you will find, I personally run the walkthrough. You will hear my voice and my candid walk through the property, and then I'm going to be texting videos to my owners of the condition of the property, the outside, the inside, the garage, basement, mechanicals, water heater, furnace. Moving upstairs, we want to see what the main floor, living room, dining room, kitchen, what that looks like. And then upstairs is where you get your typical bedroom, bathrooms. What we're looking at is quickly and efficiently comparing this property to a rent-ready condition and identifying what we're looking at. It is not a problem if we find that today's auction is a hoarder house, and the hoarder house needs a full trash out, we have rotten food, we've got carpets that are bad, and the roof is actively leaking, needs an immediate replacement. If this property is worth $150 and we want it today for $40,000, you should be thrilled, because the stuff I just went through is more of a $20,000 to $50,000 problem. So there's a lot of meat on the bone. What we do is we're going to be uploading the videos, and then none of our investors are obligated to bid that day unless you get the videos and you say, hey, I personally am interested. At that point, I have 3 agents that attend by default. I'm one of the 3. But the 3 of us will attend auctions by default. If we think we've got more investors, I draw in more of our related agents. However, what we end up with is agents in corners of the room. They don't want us together. We don't corroborate. We don't price fix together. Ultimately, you want to establish and we'll get the super easy, right? The 1% rule. If you have a $100,000 property and the rent rate for the area we gave you ahead of time is $1,000, that's pretty much everything you want to put into the property. You don't want to get below that. That's not what we experience here in Toledo. If anything, 1.1, 1.2 times the 1% rule, 1.2% is normal for us. So you should already know what your threshold is for the 1% rule and what things, what the repairs are, and that is going to generate your private number. Okay, ultimately, I don't even want to know it if I'm representing other buyers. I'm happy to consult, but I like to leave you privately with your agent. Ultimately, you and your agent are responsible to say $85K is our maximum. And by the way, you're going to have a buyer's premium. A 10% is normal. Sometimes it's 12, but 10 is much easier. 10% is going to be an $8,500 commission, or $8,500 premium on $85K. All I'm doing is taking the decimal point and moving it by 1 degree. Definitely, your agent can be doing that mathematically, but both of you guys need to be doing it in your heads. Just mental note. I don't want the gavel to hit and you to be like, great, I wanted to spend no more than 85 and I got it for 83, but there's a 10% buyer's premium. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Super simple factor, but it's straightforward. The last is we're going to end up beginning the auction. There's no real video feed. It's all just based on telephone. But we'd be on the phone with the buyer at the same time, and it will just be a candid conversation of, look, if our number was 85, we're getting close. I've now hit your threshold of where we wanted to be bidding, and then we either bow out, and you'll hear them go around the room. Is the last two. Are you sure? You're 100% sure? And then the other one is, when we begin these auctions, very commonly, you have a minimum bid of $50,000 and the property's worth $150,000. And then when you read the fine print, there's a reserve on the property that it can't sell for less than a certain undisclosed dollar amount, maybe $88,000. When we hit the day of the auction, the auctioneer will get people going and get the bidding going, and then he will hit a point where he'll go, hey, I want to try to eke some more money out of this. I'm going to give everybody a breather, but the property is selling today. We may be sitting at $109K. We hit the $88K. We're going to be selling the property. It will sell today, but I want to try to get a little more money out of the two sides. So he'll give them a break, come back in about 30, 60 seconds, and then resume the bidding. Ultimately, when one side drops out completely, and you only have one final bidder standing, it's going once, going twice, you got yourself a house. It's very straightforward. Again, just like the seller, you're gonna have 30 days to close. That day, you need to make a credit card swipe for $5,000, $7,000, $10,000, depends on the auction company. And then we're headed to closing. There is no home inspection that will get you out of the contract. If the home inspection finds something that we didn't find, we're all stuck. That's the challenge of the auctions. However, they do generate a very cost-effective investment model. They're very time-effective, but the investor, you, have to make sure you have time scheduled to actually attend the auction with us. But that said, they happen very consistently. I'm recording this in 2025 in September, and so I'm expecting that we're going to continue to have more auctions. I would say they were less prevalent 3 years ago. But now, as we're having the market's slowing, we're playing around with tariffs. There's conversation of an economic bubble. That energy of the auction is definitely coming into effect, and that's why we are so adamant about making sure that when the gavel hits, that you know everything and that you got yourself a great deal. I have never allowed, and I do not intend to allow, any of these sales to go through where we're bidding and knowing that this was a bad idea. This is a very exciting opportunity. It's really great. But the goal of when I take the videos and text it over to you, the investors, the goal is to let you know whether this is the hoarder house. We're going to have a whole lot of effort, a whole lot of repairs. This is what we're going to be looking at, and then begin to get some valuation and decide what the upper limit is. That is auctions. They're excellent vehicles, no complaints, but they're incredibly varied. If anything, the more you go to, the more successful you'll be, and definitely be prepared to walk away. Again, I give it like a 1 in 3, 1 in 10. It depends on how tightly you want to profit from the auction. You will definitely find auctions that are in excellent condition. They're in move-in, rent-ready condition. They still go up to auction because the family or the estate are seeking a quick closing, and then those transactions end up at the market rate. And so you won't find a massive discount on those commonly. That said, as always, I appreciate your investment and your attention here in our town of Toledo, Ohio, and we always appreciate your loyalty and your trust in LaPlante Real Estate. So thank you.